The final testing begins this month for Guam's first ever utility-scale solar power plant. Once hooked up to the Guam Power Authority grid, it will supply up to 25.6 megawatts. GPA General Manager John Benavente says it's the first of several big projects meant to increase the use of renewable energy.
Our first major, and certainly 25 megawatt is a substantial amount. 25 megawatt is about almost 10% of our load in the daytime and all of that. So as you can see, it'll be the first of many more renewables that we're actually pursuing. Although the price is higher today than what is our day-to-day LIAC cost, because it's only a small portion, it's actually not going to be significant enough to trigger any kind of increase in the cost to the consumer.
The plant was built and will be operated by Fortune 500 company NRG under two 25-year contracts with GPA. Project consultant Bill Alexander says the Dundun Inarahan facility is spread out over 160 acres with more than 121,000 individual photovoltaic panels that cover 42 acres.
The panels come together in a combined situation where we can put power into the Guam grid at the power size it needs to be, 34.5 kilovolts. This is done at our point of interconnection, which will be owned by GPA, and this goes directly into the grid via a transmission line. That power then, it helps GPA in terms of shaping its power load throughout the system, and it's new to the island, so it adds it has potential to add stability and other aspects that I think GPA is figuring out, and we are too. But it's a good system, and it's been a proven system around the world.
Officials estimate fuel cost savings of $300 million and net savings of about $100 million over the life of the contract. The 25 megawatts from the solar plant still represent only 10% of GPA's generation capacity. Perhaps more than anything else, it's part of the government's push to reduce overall reliance on fossil fuels. Benavente says through local incentives there has been a rise in residential solar panel systems. There is also a wind energy project underway that will add 10 megawatts to the grid by next year, and of course the solar plant.
And I believe it also showed the community and others that we are working on renewables. We are moving forward. It's just that it takes quite a bit of time to put the system in. More especially here because, again, it's the first real big, large solar PV plant here. They had to do a transmission line all the way from Dundun, all the way to Telefof, and as you can see, there was a lot of headaches and, some may say nightmares for those living in the south as they traverse through that area every day. But they have successfully completed it. And of course, the southern part of the island, although, there's solar PV provides actually some good land use for that. Otherwise, perhaps it would have remained barren or for years to come.
Meanwhile, GPA is partnering with the Defense Department, which hopes to meet its own renewable energy mandates and goals. Benavente says some 190 acres of military land across Guam have been identified as sites for additional solar power plants.
You may have heard that we were working with DOD to lease properties throughout the island that DOD owns. And by that, we're going to go out for a renewable bid to put solar PVs on those properties. That will help reduce the cost, of course, if we can negotiate good pricing for use of the property. And that would allow, again, another close to 45 megawatts of renewables. So I venture to say within the next 5 to 7 years, we'll have close to 120 megawatts of renewables, provided we can get good pricing that is of a net benefit to the consumer.
Benavente says the solar plants also help to offset some of the $300 million spent each year on fuel oil. He and others, such as UOG President Dr. Robert Underwood, also believe sustainable energy projects create economic activity that keeps more dollars here.
So again, Renewables is like a hedge for us. It's a good product because what happens now is instead of when we bring in oil to Guam, we're actually importing and exporting our dollars. We bring in dollars from tourism and export it in fuel oil costs.
The cost of installation and the cost of the panels themselves have come down dramatically in the last few years. The industry words to use for that is closer to parity, meaning at a cost of the traditional fuels, and it's coming closer. It's not quite there yet, but it will be. And at that point, then these all become, market-driven activities, and it's very important to generate the power industry that these things costs do come down, and they are.
But even as costs drop for renewable energy, for now, GPA will continue to rely heavily on fossil fuels. As Beneventi says, at the end of the day, they still need to keep the lights on.
We have to be realistic that even with 120 megawatts of capacity that we're putting in, that only generates 22% of the energy. It's a complex picture that we're heading into. It's very challenging, but certainly it's something that we are working towards to see how we can balance this in the future because, as much as we would like to say, yeah, we're going to be, you're going to just have renewables and clean energy, I don't want to go back to the load-shedding blues of the 90s.
For KUM's Business Matters, I'm Nestor Lecanto.